Hi, I'm Michael Paris, Manager of Enterprise Services at D3 Technologies. I'm doing the 100 Days of Forge Challenge to learn to develop solutions with Autodesk Forge services. During the challenge, I spent an hour every day learning Autodesk Forge development and posting about it using the 100 Days of Forge hashtag. I'll be able to help my team deliver features of our product called ForgeFlow. ForgeFlow is a suite of pre-built Autodesk Forge integrations available by subscription. This week, I mark day 50 of the challenge, and I'm over halfway there, and it's been quite an experience. I've done 50 posts, I've done 50 hours of coding, and I've learned a ton. As I have learned and built my skill set, I'm also shifting now more into working with the ForgeFlow product. Along those same lines, I decided to make some of these 10-day posts into interviews with people related to Forge, the ForgeFlow product, people who work on it, to get more information out there and learn what other people are learning as I complete this challenge. This week, I interviewed Joey Boffman, who is a PLM implementation consultant at D3, and who is the primary person who helps onboard new clients onto ForgeFlow. He's also one of the earliest adopters of ForgeFlow, so he had quite interesting things to say. So please enjoy this interview, and I'll see you again in 10 days. So Joey, you were the first person basically to really latch on and adopt ForgeFlow. I got really early feedback, from you amongst all the people on the team that it was really helpful and things like that. And I guess, looking back on sort of that time, what was it that clicked? Why were you the first person to adopt ForgeFlow, or why ForgeFlow?
Well, it was really based out of necessity to do my job.
Yeah.
At the time, I was working a lot in supporting various clients, and along with that would be, various data updates that if I had to do manually it would take forever, and the tool ForgeFlow would allow us just to blast through all that and get it done efficiently and quickly. So really just that functionality that it provided immediately of being able to work with data in bulk within Fusion 360 Manage was the immediate reason I jumped on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you saw, efficiency gains sort of right away with the bulk data tools. Was there a tool in particular?
Yeah, the bulk on-demand script tool.
Yeah.
So with that, if you're not familiar, you can run any script against any number of items that you can put inside a workspace view. So if you create a view of 500 items and want to run a certain script or even the on-edit script against those, you can do that. And so that would allow us to move workflow in bulk, or populate data, or run checks for things where, you could add a temporary field in and populate it if you needed to, something like that. So that, and then in tandem with that, the Excel export view. So you can export an Excel document that is the workspace view that you have created, and it's a lot quicker and sometimes a little more functionality than you can do with the reporting. So
yeah, I can imagine that's super helpful. So accessing data, manipulating data, and those kinds of things. You are also tasked with onboarding new clients onto ForgeFlow and training them up on ForgeFlow. Tell me, what's that experience been like?
By and large, they're all very excited because they, like me, quickly saw the possibilities. And I think beforehand, they were not always sure what this tool was or what it could do. But once they were able to kind of experience that and begin stewing on what they could do to improve their processes, we've got like nothing but positive feedback on that.
Yeah. Was there anything that stood out, in any of those client sessions? Like, is there anything that you learned from them going through that process of, training?
Well, one in particular, I think I replaced half a woman's job with with ForgeFlow, which was good for her. She was super excited, So she beforehand had a lot of manual entry and data to do on a regular basis. Anytime their suppliers would provide them with new product, and I can't remember the exact scenario, but she'd have to go through and do all this stuff. And we built a process that was several steps, scripts and data exports and imports, but essentially saved her, I don't even remember. It seemed like 20, 40 hours every month, doing just that one piece of her job. So that enabled her to do other things and be productive in a much, a more efficient way. It made her job more satisfying too.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, if you don't have to do, as much of the sort of, I guess, low value work, or,
Right.
that then you can focus on bigger picture things, and that's awesome.
I'll add there's another instance too of company that was retiring items, and their items and bombs, and would want to remove or replace that item throughout their entire tenant, which before was a long, laborsome process. And so ForgeFlow doesn't have, a button that you can click that does that, right? Where we could probably build something, say, in Jitterbit or C# or some application that would do this. It would cost a lot of money and have to be maintained. We just worked out process, several steps, build a view and find these things, run a script against them, and in a matter of minutes, they could do the same thing that used to take them all day. So for replacing those items, so that's another success story, I guess, but ties in well to its immediate value. So in my day-to-day use, and it's expanding because ForgeFlow is expanding, right? So it's providing more functionality, but really the data, interacting with data in bulk is, at least in this point in time, kind of the cornerstone. But also, like for instance, now I'm using ForgeFlow to register webhooks that we use with Jitterbit integrations. And it's so much easier to use ForgeFlow to do that than some other method of trying to get that all put together. It's like a few clicks and you can have a webhook, and then that calls our Jitterbit endpoints. So and I know there's more on the roadmap for integration wise that will live within ForgeFlow itself. So I can't wait to look into that. And I assume once that's presented to me, that'll be the new cornerstone. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work going into it, and a lot of stuff coming out in the future that I'm really excited about. I guess, beyond that, like, is there something that you would specifically want to see happening in ForgeFlow in the future?
Oh, sure. I think we actually have a list of this that I've contributed to. Bomb imports was one. I think the items and bombs are a revisioned controlled workspace import. I'd like to be able to import at a certain rev and life cycle. That is something the out of the box import tool does that ForgeFlow can't, but ForgeFlow can also import directly to DMS IDs, which makes it a lot easier to import into a revision controlled workspace, and in some ways safer, because I've had that out of the box tool screw up on me. So expanding that import functionality would be good. Bomb tab, and the grid tab on Fusion. All of this is in Fusion 360 Manager. So
right. I guess the last question I would have is, what do you want people to learn or to know when they're considering ForgeFlow, right? what is it that, people who aren't clients yet or anything like that, what should they know about it that you know about it?
I would say if they have any sort of bulk data entry or update needs, they can provide a ton of value, obviously. If they have any limitations they're running into in Fusion 360 Manage as far as, identifying things they want to update, or like I mentioned, that bomb replacing an item, it's very helpful there. If they have a need to extract data from F3M easily without using the reporting, which can be cumbersome, it's very good for that as well. And same with imports. Like if they're importing data but want things to happen along with that import, ForgeFlow is great for that, because the out-of-the-box tool doesn't trigger an on-create script, for instance. So you have no automation that occurs along with a regular data import. ForgeFlow can automate a whole bunch of stuff essentially in that process. So
I forgot about that one. Can you tell us, what does the process look like a little bit with, when you don't have ForgeFlow to run that import? What happens then if you're using the out of the box?
So the out of the box import tool has its place for sure. It's fast.
Yeah,
really fast. But when you import items, if you have any scripting, on create scripting associated with that workspace, it won't fire for those items, and that can be cumbersome. That can cause data issues, so the alternative would have to be going in and editing every one of those items afterwards to get what you need to happen.
Yeah.
ForgeFlow works a bit differently, so it's slower, but that's okay because of the functionality it adds. It's actually running the on-create scripting for every item. All it is a user impersonating, ForgeFlow is impersonating a user. So it's like the user's in there creating the items. And that just opens up a lot more doors. We've prevented some issues for one client by instructing them to use the ForgeFlow for the import tool, because they would always forget about this one, these little corner cases in their import, and it wouldn't work right, and then end up causing data issues later. So we're just use ForgeFlow and it'll be fine. And so that's another example, I guess. But really, back to your question, any limitation that you're encountering in F3M, ask someone at D3 about ForgeFlow, because the chances are there's a way it can help.
Perfect, man. I think that's the perfect place for us to wrap up. So I think you summarized it well, man. Ask Joey. Ask anyone at D3, but particularly seek out Joey.